Jeter was not Barry Bonds. He was not the home run hitter. He didn't have the best numbers ever. I wouldn't say that he was, the best baseball player of all time. Like I wouldn't say that. I would say he's definitely, top 25, top 50, at least somewhere in that range. But that's okay because I think we have to remember that, and as we saw last episode, the best players of all time aren't necessarily going to be the best leaders because you have to take on two roles. You have to be the best at your particular position. You have to be the best player that you can possibly be. And Jordan arguably was the best basketball player of all time. But when you're a captain, you're a leader, you take on this other role. And that's also to maintain the culture, maintain the standard, maintain your professionalism, leading by example, and all these different things so that you can help guide this team and develop this culture. Welcome back to the Athlete Podcast. So if you missed last episode, definitely check out last episode. But we examined Michael Jordan and Mia Hamm. Now we're doing the Athlete Podcast Greatest Athlead Tournament bracket. And what we did last time was we examined Michael Jordan versus Mia Hamm, the number 1 seed versus the number 8 seed. Jordan, being the number 1 seed, was upset by Mia Hamm. And I want to say the score was 8.1 to 9.4, if I'm not mistaken. I may be getting that number wrong, but nonetheless, Mia Hamm moves on, and we're going on to our second game, if you want to call it that. It is Derek Jeter versus Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And what I wanted to do first is let's start off with Derek Jeter. Now, I left you with a question this was like 2 weeks ago. You had asked me a question. I'm going back over the edits. And you had asked me, why were you a Jeter fan if you grew up in Baltimore? And I never answered the question. I went into some tangent on the Eagles. So first of all, my apologies.
Yeah. It's so funny how it always just circles back to the birds, dude. Which
every time.
I can't, dude. I'm sorry. Because this week,
I know. Yeah.
I can't. You're right.
I think we'll probably do at some point is do another deep dive on the birds, just kind of getting ready for the season. There's so much to talk about. Let's wait till after June 1st.
You're right. June 1st.
And then we'll pick it up. But and just to kind of preface before we get into Jeter and Abdul-Jabbar, I just want to say I think this is really just a cool format. I really enjoyed kind of doing the research on this, and for those who are just joining, we've been utilizing AI to help us provide the content so that they can just dig as much content as we can get on these folks. Now, Jeter, for me, I definitely know a fair bit about him. So I grew up in Baltimore, not too far from Baltimore, Ellicott City, actually. But my family, all my friends, all Orioles fans. So I grew up as a Yankees fan. One of my first ball games I ever went to was when the Orioles were playing the Yankees. And I want to say this is when it was like Jeter's rookie year or something like that. And it was funny. I just never adopted the Orioles at the time. And I just saw Jeter just make some of these plays at shortstop and just some of the hits he had. And he just looked awesome, dude. Like Jeter was Mr. Baseball. Like if you were to vision a baseball player, and I'd even, also argue to say, if you envision a leader, that's exactly what you would epitomize. Just class act. Has always been a class act, was always consistent, came up in the big games. How many times, where the game's on the line, he hits the home run. He was just Mr. Clutch, Mr. Professional. I mean, and in terms of professionalism, I don't think we get a better example, but
I was so young when I think what year did he retire? It was 14, right?
Yeah, sounds about right. Like 13 or 14.
13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when he retired, Nike came out with the commercial. And it was they had the T-shirt. It said respect, and it was like the 2, right?
Yeah.
In it. And I remember like not really understand because I'm always a Philly fan. Like I don't like any other team, outside. Like I love the Celtics, but like, right. So I never dove into any other team, right? But you just knew Derek Jeter being the best shortstop in baseball, right?
Absolutely.
At the time. And I remember seeing the commercial, and I was like a big Rivals guy. I thought it was always so cool. You don't ever respect your rivals, right? And I remember seeing Mark Wahlberg from Boston, Massachusetts in that commercial wearing the respect t-shirt and saying thank you. And I was like,
Yeah.
holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like this guy, like, you know what I mean? And I thought that was like one of the first times, like I miss that in sports. Like you don't see that anymore, you know? And like, that would be like Dak Prescott saying, you know, congratulations to, you know, Jalen Hurts for winning the Super Bowl back in 2024 and 2025 season. Right. So it's like, stuff like that I find very cool. And I remember that was like one of the moments I'm like, oh man, like this guy really, because I was so young, I never watched him. I always was a Phillies fan. You know, I loved Jimmy Rollins, our shortstop. I didn't watch Derek Jeter. So
Jimmy
super cool.
Rollins. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That was super cool to see, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's almost like his respect, from the fans transcended the rivalries, right? Because the Yankees and the Red Sox were big rivalry back when I was growing up,
Yeah,
and
dude.
I know Red Sox fans definitely hated him for a while, but it was almost kind of like, what do you have to hate, man? I mean, this guy is just again. Can't say it enough. Just the epitome of a class act. It's almost kind of like it reminds me of like when Ovechkin broke the record and he would go to like through Pittsburgh, and there's another one where Pittsburgh hated this guy but just gave him the respect. And then recently, I guess because in this last year, there was talks. We still don't know at this point, at the time we're recording this, whether Ovechkin's going to retire or not. But one of I think his last trip to Pittsburgh last year, he got like a standing ovation, so when a player just completely redefines the game, leaves his mark on the game. It's just really cool to see fans kind of respond like that. Um,
Yeah,
and I and I wanted to
absolutely.
share before we get into diving in on Derek Jeter here. I was reading this passage again from the captain class, and this is what the author wrote: "The one captain I've met who epitomized what people expect a modern leader to be is Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees. When the team named him to the role, the captain, 2003, the decision was met with a chorus of hosannas. Handsome, calm, serious, stoical. Jeter played hard every day and won renown for his clutch hitting. He was a homegrown Yankee and a perennial all-star shortstop who had already helped the team win 4 World Series titles and 5 American League pennants. More important, Jeter was a refreshing alternative to the headline of the day, which were dominated by the antics of boorish, overpaid athletes who took performance-enhancing drugs, misbehaved off the field, or projected a callous disregard for anyone but themselves. I would argue probably one of the more exciting times in baseball,
Yeah,
to be honest.
I was just watching an interview with I think it was Barry Bonds,
Yeah,
like talking about like these guys. He was talking about Shohei Ohtani, where he's like, Shohei wouldn't come to, he's like, if he played when I played, he wouldn't hit a home run. He wouldn't come back to he would hit a home run, but he wouldn't, after that, he wouldn't come back to the plate, get a first base run or get a base single and then steal second. He's like, that's not happening. He's like that. Like, it's just, you weren't going to be able to do that back when we were playing.
yeah,
And that's a time where, you know, Derek Jeter, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, man, like up until he retired, like baseball was, you know, it's obviously not, you know, as intense as like football and, you know, but like you saw, you can see the difference in gameplay and attitude. Like you were
yeah,
getting checked at the plate, you know, like it
yeah,
was
yeah.
like,
And it's
so
wild to hear some of the stories now, like Barry Bonds talking about his duels with like Greg Maddux and it was almost like I don't think the hitting was dominant back then. Now I feel like pitching is dominant, and I know that's gonna get some I'm gonna get some critics on that one, but like the Paul Skeens, the Shohei Ohtani's, Philly's got a guy now who's throwing it.
Chris Sanchez,
Yeah,
dude, that
yeah,
guy, he is lights
yeah,
out.
yeah,
That I
yeah,
would,
I
dude.
mean
I don't want to go into because I know
I know
we're,
we always go down these rabbit holes.
but watching Chris Sanchez pitch against the Dodgers in last year's first round of the MLB playoffs, that game, I was so angry that the Phillies batting lineup the bats just went cold. I'm like, this dude has saved your asses. He
Right,
saved him for 7 innings.
right.
And like the dude, like I remember the bad call by the ump and Chris Sanchez. I follow Broad Sports Talk Media, love Broad Sports Talk Media out of Philadelphia, South Philadelphia. He goes Chris Sanchez threw this pitch. The umpire called a ball, and Sanchez looked at the umpire from the pitching mound like your grandmom looks at you when you ate all water ice before dinner, because he was so disgusted at the call, and he was like, he gave him a look like,
Yeah.
you know, that wasn't right. Like, I'm ashamed of you. And like, dude, that just started the spiral. They had to relieve him. The relief came in. It was a fucking mess. But like,
Yeah.
dude, excuse my language, but like, I could
No.
go on a rant about that, dude, because like Chris
Well,
Sanchez, he just
he's got
performed.
and Sanchez has aura. You know, that's and
Dude,
I feel like that's a word I'm trying to
yeah,
use more now is
yeah,
aura.
yeah,
And again, here's okay, let's tie it back in.
yeah,
Jeter had aura. Jeter
100%.
100% had aura. So,
So
all right, so back to
Jeter,
the go ahead.
so the five, bringing up Jeter's aura.
Yeah. 4 World Series titles. And I want to say so they lost to the Diamondbacks. So it would have been 5. I just spilled my water everywhere. That's lovely. It would have been 5, but the Diamondbacks won, and that was the 2001, I think, campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, he would have had 5. Diamondbacks won. I know he was on the team that beat the Phils in 2009.
Hmm.
I remember like going into a spiral, mental health downfall in the 8th grade. Um, but I was reading an article on Jeter, and they just talk about his level of like calm consistency, calm hard work.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
constantly
that's a
like,
great way to put it.
this dude, you can't shake him.
And to think that, first of all, to be considered the captain of the Yankees, and the Yankees are
Dude,
the gold standard of baseball. Even though they haven't had as much success lately, but there's arguably one of the best organizations in all of sports, like in general. They've been the most successful, and I
well,
think of
dude,
all sports out there.
it's one of the only organizations in sports, and the viewers may, when I say this, they may laugh at this, but like, I didn't know this till last year. You can't be a Yankee and not shave your face.
That's right. That is, and that was implemented, and I don't know, it may have been implemented beforehand, but I know Steinbrenner, especially when Jeter was there, that was very big.
Yeah.
It was all about the image, and I argue that baseball's always been that way. Like
But
baseball is
I think it, like, not to cut you off, I think it has, but I think when I say that, I'm more so like the fact that you can get some of these athletes who are making $100 million.
yeah,
You will not play here unless you shave your face. Like, that is why, like, in my opinion, like, they're the gold standard in baseball. It's like, we don't care. You're not going to play here. You're not going to have facial hair. I don't give a shit.
that's right.
Like,
That's right.
like, and I feel like only the Yankees can do it.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and one of the things that comes to mind too. So yeah, not just that. Again, high standards, right? Let's talk about culture. But I think if you've ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio,
no, I haven't.
oh
I
man,
wish. Is
that's
it?
another good movie. But there's
Yeah.
one line in the movie where he's talking to the FBI agent, and he's like, "Hey Carl, why is it that the Yankees win every time? Why do the Yankees always win?" And Carl's like, "Because the Yankees got Mickey Mantle." He goes, "Nah, it's because the other team can't stop staring at them damn pinstripes." Like there is an aura with the Yankees. Okay, so and again, not to go down this whole big rabbit hole here, but to be the captain of that team
Yeah.
is enormous prestige, and I think it's not something they just hand out. I want to say Aaron Judge is the current captain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Um, but anyway, back to the book. Jeter showed up, signed autographs, put his head down, and competed. If there was any magma smoldering inside him, he never allowed it to surface. He didn't start brawls on the field or even participate in them once they begun. He wasn't a doper or a cheat. He came from a solid family, stayed out of trouble, performed good works for charity. He pulled off a rare feat of serving as a positive role model for kids while still projecting the crackling celebrity of a leading man. I'm not if I'm not mistaken, he's also dated at least 15 A-listers. Like,
Yes.
you
I
know,
didn't want to bring that up, but he definitely
yeah,
did it.
yeah.
If you're familiar with the TV series, one of the best of all time, Friday Night Lights, the spinoff
Oh
to
yeah.
one of the greatest football movies of all time. Lila Garrity. I don't know her government name,
I know
but
exactly. I know who you're talking about. Yep. Yep.
I know that him and Lila Garrity were dating.
I want to say it
For
was like Jessica Alba was one of them. I think Mariah Carey. I think just to name a few. Okay.
all right, all right, man.
Need we say more? Um, but what puzzled me about Jeter's tenure is how few trophies he collected. In 12 seasons, he held the role. Yankees won the World Series only once. So while he was captain, they only won the World Series once. So a lot of early success. To Jeter's adoring public, which even included fans of other teams, the lack of trophies didn't matter. His star power helped him turn the Yankees into a thriving business. During his captaincy, the team opened a new $1.5 billion stadium and saw its annual ticket revenue grow beyond the $4 million in 2010. The near universal praise for Jeter's leadership had everything to do with his image and his behavior. Jeter was considered a great captain because he never indulged in any dark impulses and hewed to the highest principles of sportsmanship. Derek Jeter was good for baseball. So, just to kind of lay the foundation, if you will. Now, again, for those who are just joining us, what we prompted AI to review is based on our scoring rubric. And what we're examining are if I'm not mistaken, the 12 leadership traits of what we would consider professionalism. Second thing is leading by example. Third thing is accountability. Accountability of self, accountability of others. Last but not least is caring for your teammates. So let's get into it. Derek Jeter, in terms of justice, scored a 9 out of 10. Jeter expected every single player wearing the pinstripes to respect the uniform equally. He didn't care about a player's contract size. If you put the work in and played the game hard, you earned his respect. That's fair. His judgment. His judgment under fire was elite. On the field, his positioning and anticipation were legendary. Running across the diamond for the famous flip play. You remember that against the Athletics way back
Yeah,
when? I want to say that was like the division series or something like that. That was on the championship run to when they faced the Diamondbacks, and I think they eventually lost that in that game. Off the field, his judgment in protecting the clubhouse from toxic New York tabloid media was masterclass. He was dependable. Dependability, 10 out of 10. Initiative, 9 out of 10. Jeter didn't wait around for managers to handle locker room issues. If an individual wasn't running out ground balls or was acting out in the media, Jeter would quietly pull them aside in the dugout to correct the behavior immediately.
see, dude, where is that? We talk about this every week when we're not like doing the athlete bracket. Like this always comes up, especially when we talk about Philly, the Eagles. Like that's the type of leadership that is missing in pretty much every locker room and every single sport um, across the board right now.
That's where the accountability comes in.
Yeah.
It's just kind of holding the standard. I would imagine it's very much, hey, with the Yankees, okay, we demonstrate class. Like we are supposed to be the most professional team. Like we're expected to be the most professional team in the entire league. So yeah, it's just and I just a quick pivot for a second because Jeter was not Barry Bonds. He was not the home run hitter. He didn't have the best numbers ever. I wouldn't say that he was, the best baseball player of all time. Like I wouldn't say that. I would say he's definitely, top 25, top 50, at least somewhere in that range. But that's okay because I think we have to remember that, and as we saw last episode, the best players of all time aren't necessarily going to be the best leaders because you have to take on two roles. You have to be the best at your particular position. You have to be the best player that you can possibly be. And Jordan arguably was the best basketball player of all time. But when you're a captain, you're a leader, you take on this other role. And that's also to maintain the culture, maintain the standard, maintain your professionalism, leading by example, and all these different things so that you can help guide this team and develop this culture. So there's a lot of humility, there's a lot of selflessness, and a lot of sacrifice that it's very hard to be able to do both of them. If you were able to do both of them, I mean, that's incredible. But I think that's extremely hard to do. And I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll cover some more as we go into this tournament further. But I think it was for Jeter. For Jeter, he was very well rounded, and he was able to accomplish his duties as captain. It's almost like he took on the captain role, and and then that's where and obviously that's why he got the captain role is because all these different traits. But it's hard being able to juggle both roles. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so military story. I had a PL, a platoon leader, so a West Point guy. Like he wasn't in my platoon. He was in sister platoon. I don't want to say his name because he's definitely still serving. He could do it. He could do it all, and he was quiet. And like when the dudes were in like the room, like kind of smoking and joking, like talking about shit you probably shouldn't be talking about at work, right? Like
Yeah,
just military shit. Like it didn't bother him. Like he didn't like stop saying that, but like he didn't engage.
yeah,
But it was a type of engagement where like his presence was like everyone knew we shouldn't we should be like it was just like and even if the stuff we were talking about like it didn't have to be like vulgar or whatever, right? Like most of the time like it sometimes it was like locker room talk and other times it wasn't. Like that's just the nature of the military. But like whatever it was, like he just like wouldn't engage because I think he just knew like his presence was just like, I don't want to do that. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for this to lead effectively, to hold everyone to the standard, to be hold everyone accountable, to make sure everyone is exactly where they need to be, exactly performing how they need to be performing. And if they're not, I
hmm,
need to provide the resources so that they are. And it was like with that presence, like you saw this like overwhelming amount of like professionalism become across the board um
yeah.
around this dude I did like ended up praising him for it. He's very successful. So yeah, it was very similar like style, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Never been in a locker room with Derek Jeter, but like I'm sure it's very similar in style.
As a leader, your job is to do what's needed, and I think that's what separates a lot from. I'm trying to paint that in the way where it's not just your player role, but it's also the leader role. The leader role, it's like a lot of times you need to kind of fill in the gaps. What are the gaps in the team? You got to take on that responsibility. And I imagine just like the guy you were talking about, it's like Jeter very much came in and he saw, hey, this is the way he wanted to operate. This is the culture that he saw. So number one, he became the vision of the culture. Like he embodied that. Getting into decisiveness, he operated with extreme calmness. Whether he was making a split second, and this is 9 out of 10 for decisiveness. Whether he was making a split second defensive cutoff throw or steering the team through a high profile manager change. That's another thing we got to talk about. Went through several different coaches. Jeter made firm decisions and never let outside chaos dictate his movements. So it's almost like, yeah, I mean, as I've been in situations where they've changed coaches, I've been in both athletically and professionally,
Right.
and that can hurt your culture, 100%. Different regime changes, right? And all of a sudden there's these new standards coming in. Things are going to be different, a lot of uncertainty, and that's what's going to cause a little panic, a little chaos. But nonetheless, his calm demeanor, like kind of remaining stoic no matter what. I'm sure he's probably had plenty of conversations with the guys in the locker room. Just, hey, do what you need to do. You're a great player. You have a pivotal point. You have a critical role in this team. Like, just focus on your game. That's all you need to do. Don't worry about a thing, because at the end of the day, we're the ones on the field. So whoever comes on this team, like we're the ones that are going to get it done. And as long
Yep.
as we can remain good, we're good to go. Tact, 8 out of 10. Highly calculated and private. Jeter handled critiques behind closed doors. That's a big one too, man.
That's a huge one, dude.
I'm sure. Tell me about like how the military would handle this, but I've always heard that it's you know praise in public, criticize in private. Talking like
But
one-on-one conversations.
yeah, like when I had actually a platoon sergeant who said this, and he was probably one of the most gnarliest platoon sergeants I've ever had. He was my last one that I had on the line. He was great. But he had said, like, when you get into a leadership position, like we call it like now for politically correct, corrective training, right? Like if someone's late, you're going to make them do push-ups, right? And now there's like a huge bill trying to be pushed where like it becomes like a literal law, like a criminal offense for hazing. Because there are situations in the military and there are unfortunate situations where it's like, dude, it's just taken way too far, man, and you can't do that, right? Um, but he put it in perspective. He's like, when you become a sergeant or a staff sergeant and you're a team leader, you're a squad leader, like he was like, in my platoon, you've earned your stripes to get smoked in private. So, like, I'm not gonna break like, you have to really screw up for a platoon sergeant, what seems like, to bring you out, in front of all of your guys in your squad and just correctively train you and smoke you in public. So it's like you get that was one of the perks, man. Like, you've earned your stripes and like, hey, if you screw up big time, like we had a guy, late all the time. Um, and you've earned your stripes to get smoked in private. Um, Now, does that work sometimes? No. But I think corrective training for guys that are on a team, not like it's kind of goes back to the Jordan thing. Like embarrassing someone in public isn't the best way to make sure that they're better. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I find that it's like that is absolutely never effective.
Well, let me share just a quick story. So
Sure.
when I was in NC State, like my first meeting, we just got started camp. We're all waiting in the big auditorium, and in walked Tom O'Brien. And one of the very first things he said is he calls out Willie Young, who is first team All ACC defensive end, ended up having a great career in the NFL. Went to the Lions, and I'm trying to remember what other teams. I think it was just the Lions. But anyway, calls out Willie, and I'm trying to remember how he phrased this, but it was basically something along the lines of, "Don't you ever fucking talk to the media when somebody's injured and give them a status report. You let me handle that. I don't ever," and just berated him. The very first thing he said. My first image of Tom O'Brien, and I just was sitting there like, first of all, sheer terror, and that room was quiet.
Yeah.
And Tom O'Brien, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, he was former Marine, went to the Naval Academy. His identity is the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
He's an NFL football coach slash, former drill sergeant. Kind of and the guy was very intimidating presence, but he did that, I think, to kind of set the tone.
Yeah, and that's what
And
I
I
was
think
going.
that would be the dichotomy here. It's kind of
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Because like a lot of people hearing this will be like, well, and I think this is just as a leader having the emotional intelligence and situational intelligence
mhm,
to know when something like an ass chewing in public is completely necessary, right? Like
yeah,
every situation is different. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like,
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
not telling you like I always resort back to Coach JB because he does bring up some valid points. And he says like, when he was on Theo Vaughn's podcast years ago, he goes, I can't whisper sweet nothings in these kids' ears.
Right.
I'm not going to get through them. And that is very valid, man. And in a lot of situations, I would say more often than not, you can. And it might seem like I'm kind of backtracking, but I think having that situational awareness is very real. And I think in baseball in particular, um, I think the situations are much different. Like football, you'll see it more. I think in baseball, like you can take a public ass chewing, right? But like it's not as common
Yeah,
as you would
I
see
think
like
so.
on
I
the
think, yeah,
sideline playing for like a Nick Saban or like
sure,
a
sure.
Tom O'Brien.
It's funny how, number one, he called out an all ACC player, like, who's been under his belt now for a while, and it's almost kind of like, I bet he also thought Willie can take it, because Willie's got a strong personality. He was. I would argue that he would be kind of silly more often than not. So maybe that was the plan, but I think ultimately, I think the best course of action is to have a one on one. Like, he could have just as easily went up to Willie one on one, said, "Well, dude, Don't say anything more to the press. Like if you
Well,
want to,
and
and
that's
if you're going to
also,
go to the press, look, I don't have a problem with it, but here's the parameters. We're not
dude.
talking about anybody's medical situations. We're not talking about any plans for the upcoming season. No, not talking about schemes. We're not doing it like have a list or something. But I think that it was effect. It was for the
Dude,
effect.
that, but then also too, man, like I would almost argue, like if you call it like doing that in front of everyone, like there's the two most effective ways possible is one, doing that in front of everyone, you're setting the tone. Two, if he called him into his office and gave him a ass chewing in his office or at a coaches meeting, like, hey, come up here in front of all the coaches right now and just tore into him, like both are effective. And
Yeah, true.
either one, they're like no method is better than the other, right? Like I think like both of those methods for me, if I was getting pulled aside personally, like man to man in front of the coaches, they're like who the f do you think you are doing that?
Yeah.
Like the next time you do that, like you can pretty much drop a transfer packet, sit out for a year, and go play
Oh,
for another.
100%. 100%.
Like
Yep.
I would be like a
Yep.
little bit even more shaken up. I'm like, oh shit, dude. Like
Yeah, for
I
sure. For
up.
sure. But again, I'll put it this way: as a leader's judgment, how you want to handle that one. And
100%, dude, for
all right,
sure.
let's keep going. Integrity, 10 out of 10. Again, we talked about Jeter wouldn't get involved in the performance enhancing drugs. Enthusiasm, 9 out of 10. Jeter wasn't a screaming rah rah leader, but his love for the game and the thrill of winning was unmistakable. He smiled, celebrated his teammates' success genuinely, and made playing in high pressure games look fun. Bearing, absolute perfection, 10 out of 10. Jeter possessed the greatest professional bearing in modern sports history. That's, first of all, it's a bold statement. Uh,
That's a bold statement,
that
but
is
it's
very bold.
also
But honestly, I mean, I
it's
can't
I
argue
can't
against
think
it.
of anyone else. I can't argue against
Yeah.
it.
Just, yeah, just the aura, the cool, like, honestly, probably one of the coolest players ever, I'd
He's
say.
so yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
he's man, dude.
Yeah.
I
And
don't know if
yeah,
there's like a sports fan out there, one, who doesn't know who Derek Jeter is and who he
right,
played for.
right.
And two, I can't think of an athlete that is better in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because every athlete on here is like, when you look at the bracket, you're like, I can think of multiple times where like he had an event on court or this person punched this person in the face at practice and it hit ESPN. Like I have never heard anything like that.
No, no, not there's no scandals. Again, the most I think press he's gotten that we call him bad press, if you even want to call it that, is like his dating circle.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
which I mean, only helps his aura. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, but nonetheless, he's had personal slumps, he's had heartbreaking playoff losses, but his posture never changed. He always remained consistent, and he always remained that character. Unselfishness. He consistently deflected individual praise to the team before self, routinely noting that individual stats meant nothing without a ring. I can totally get that. When Alex Rodriguez, a statistically superior shortstop, joined the team, Jeter remained captain, but worked to integrate him in the lineup for the greater good of the club. And they shifted A-Rod to third base, which I thought was interesting. Like, statistically better, but A-Rod, why don't you take third? I think A-Rod put on a few pounds too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think he just wanted to be more power hitting, and shortstop's not an easy position to play, man. But nobody made it look better.
No,
Nobody
and
made it look
you
better.
look at like even some of the shortstops that like were playing in that time. Like I think Mookie Betts was coming into the league as
Think about,
Jeter.
oh, how about this? Here's a name: Nomar Garcia Parra.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't. It's because it was like Nomar, Jeter, and A-Rod were like the top shortstops at the time. And they always said Jeter was the richest, A-Rod was the youngest, Nomar was the richest. No, that Nomar was the best. Excuse me, Nomar was the best.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think without doubt, Jeter takes that mantle. But that's just my opinion. Knowledge, or excuse me, confidence, 10 out of 10. Quiet, unwavering swagger. Jeter never looked panicked, stressed, or overwhelmed, even when facing elimination games. This confidence acted as an emotional thermostat for the entire dugout. An emotional thermostat. I've always thought a great way to put leadership is like you set the temperature for the team. You set the dial, and it's whatever's needed. If you need a boost, you may want to come in with a lot more emotion in what you're saying, and your body language and then the words that you say. But let's not get too high. We come off a big win, great. We still got a lot to work on, guys. Let's dial it down. Okay, let's focus on our job. We got another game tomorrow. Let's get after it. So it's just being able to, channel that thermostat. Knowledge, 9 out of 10. While not the most physically gifted or athletic shortstop of his generation, that's subjective. Jeter maximized his output through an advanced intellectual understanding of hitters' tendencies, turf speed, wind directions, and situational game therapy. That's masterclass. Like when you start hearing, I hear this from time to time, but guys who just absolutely study every facet of their game, like golfers do this. Have you heard a golfer analyzing a
Yeah,
green, like which way the blades of the grass are are tilted, or wind speeds,
yeah.
those kinds of things. That's incredible. Loyalty, 10 out of 10. Fiercely loyal to the Yankee organization. His manager, especially Joe Torre, his core teammates, he would aggressively shield his guys from outside criticism, expecting the same loyalty in return. Endurance, an absolute Iron Man, Jeter played 20 grueling seasons at a premium defensive position, accumulating over 2,700 regular season games and an extra full season's worth of high stress postseason games. Sense of humor, 8 out of
Ugh.
10. Possessed a dry, sarcastic wit that he used masterfully to diffuse tension in a highly stressed locker room. He loved subtle dugout banter and pulled lighthearted practical jokes on rookies to make them feel included. Okay, so that's professionalism. Leading by example, 10 out of 10. Jeter's work ethic was gold standard. He ran every single routine ground ball at 100% speed, even in April blowout games. By showing that the face of the franchise never took a single play off, he effectively stripped away the right for anyone else on the roster to slack off. Accountability, we talked about this a little bit, but 9 out of 10. Jeter forced accountability through a quiet cultural expectation. The Yankee way was real under his watch. If a player breached clubhouse rules or showed up out of shape, Jeter's quiet disappointment. That's an interesting phrase.
Dude, I bring it back. That's a really, really, really good way to put it, man. Like I bring it back to Christopher Sanchez looking at that umpire.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just quiet disappointment.
I'm not
Like
going to say anything, but you're going to see in my eyes. You can see my body language.
you're better than that, dude.
And you'll hear a little bit about that with when we get to Tim Duncan. Same thing. Same.
Yeah,
It was, you may not hear him say it, but you're going to see it in his eyes.
yeah.
Um, so Jeter's quiet disappointment or a swift private word was usually enough to fix the issue instantly. Caring for teammates, 8 out of 10. Jeter cared deeply about his teammates' professional success and actively protected them from external wolves, the media, or hostile fans. However, his care was highly corporate and professional. He wasn't necessarily a deep emotional confidant like Mia Hamm, for example, but rather an umbrella that kept the storm off his team so they could perform. All right, the final tally. Overall leadership score 9.2 out of 10. Okay. Now, I know for the sake of time, I want to let's just dive right into Kareem. All right. Kareem scored 9 out of 10 in justice. Judgment, 10 out of 10. Intellectually elite. On the floor, his basketball IQ, spatial awareness, and game management were legendary. And by the way, I know we provide a lot of color for Jeter. I'm not going to be able to provide too much color on my end for Kareem. Again, I'm just not. My knowledge of basketball is not really great. I've never seen him play, so I'm just going off of scores here. But obviously, we can comment. But we're probably going to go through this one relatively quickly, and I hope I don't upset anybody with that one. Okay, judgment. I mentioned 10 out of 10. Intellectually elite, dependability, the absolute blueprint for longevity. He played 20 seasons. He was the ultimate safety net. Initiative, 8 out of 10. Kareem's initiative was internal. He pioneered revolutionary training methods like yoga, martial arts with Bruce Lee. That's pretty interesting. To stay ahead of the lead. However, he didn't naturally initiate verbal locker room rallies, preferring to let his play do the talking. So he kind of preferred leading by example more. That was interesting. Decisiveness, 9 out of 10. Cool, calm, and calculated. Tact, 7 out of 10. So this is what's going to hurt him. Kareem wasn't abrasive like Jordan, but he wasn't overly diplomatic either. He was a man of few words. When he did speak, he was direct, honest, and blunt. He expected professionals to act like professionals without needing to sugarcoat feedback. So this is interesting, and I'm gonna make one quick comment here, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because let me tell you, when we get to Duncan, oh man, you're gonna probably hear the same kind of color as we did with Jeter, but Duncan was the same way, in the sense that he was a man of few words. Not the overly exciting. Anytime he was being interviewed, a lot of people even called him boring, but he did it differently because you instead of hearing a lot of verbal, you got a lot of physical contact, which was interesting. You got a lot of like pats on the back, or smack in the ass, or just like a hug or something like that. A lot of eye contact. Always whenever you're talking to him, he was always present. So it wasn't necessarily that he was a man of few words, but he made up for it in the way that he was communicating without words. Does that make sense?
100%.
So
There's a quote, right? So I have this article from Biz Times. No idea. It's on Kareem's website. Leadership lessons from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Biz Times during your career, you've been around great leaders and you've been a leader. What are some top leadership philosophies that you have developed over the years? And I'm going to read his response, and
yeah, yeah,
I
go
want
for
you
it.
to like, immediately think of like who this makes you think of, right?
Okay.
One of the key things in being a leader is to have an understanding of teamwork. You may be great at what you do, but without the support of other people, their skill and expertise that support what you do, if those interactions aren't well oiled, you are not as efficient as you want to be. Dude, I think it brings us back to our conversation with Ray.
Oh yeah, good point. All right, keep
You know,
going.
like just him and the humility of
Yeah,
everywhere. And again, dude, like I bring this up because you look at a resume like his and you're like, it doesn't get much better from a military standpoint than that,
right,
right? And
right.
even his professional resume as a civilian now of like the university he's going to at, he's Northwestern Kellogg MBA program, and what he's doing on the civilian side, like he's just doing it, right? He's crushing it.
Yeah,
But when he talks about every single place that he's been, he's gone into it with humility and wanting to learn from others and kind of seeing how the process is going and seeing how he can sink in and be an asset, right? I served in his command, and that is exactly who he is.
hmm
Like you have some guys, some commanders that come in and they're just like they just don't get it. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to get it. Right. And recruiting was very like it was hit or miss with that. You had guys come in. It's like, look, it's either you're going to do it or you're not. Right. He was never that person. It was always like he was, he wanted to learn from everyone else in his battalion because he was not a recruiter. He was a guest. He was a leader. But with that, it was like the presence when he came around was like because he was so humble about his accomplishments. And he's like, look, I've done this, but I haven't done this. It drove you more to work harder and to want to be successful because you don't have this dude jumping down your throat, screaming and yelling at you about something that he's never done. He's also a guest in the world of recruiting, So it was like leading that way. Like when I read this, I'm like, right. I'm
yeah,
like, that's
yeah.
exactly like how he was. Like he's like the best, and I think that goes across the board in a lot of units in the military, and in sports. Like the best you're going to be is you have to be able to collaborate with others. I mean, shit, man, that's even in
Yeah,
corporate America. I hate to bring up corporate America, but like it's the truth, dude. Like that cross functional communication that everyone talks about on their resume.
right.
Like how much are you actually? What's your ability to actually cross functionally communicating with other departments internally with your company? How efficient are you? How are
Yeah,
you communicating with marketing? How are you communicating with legal? How are you communicating with, HR? All these things, right? And like I think that you can take this quote and you can run with it because you see that and you need to like this is a very good example of what people should strive to be everywhere they go.
Dude,
If you want to
100%.
be an
Humility
influencer,
leads the way,
yes,
you know?
humility leads the way, dude.
Yep, and it's been proven, man. Even like I can't tell you how many times I've come across this in any book. It's just when you approach a culture with humility, it's like there is a great response. Like you develop more trust, there's more cohesion, players are more bought in just because you're coming in saying, "Hey guys, I don't have this all figured out and I need your help." And help me learn along the way. And so that I can support you and then you can help me. And together we're going to do this thing. Like that's the secret, man. That is the secret sauce.
Dude, Jocko talks about it on almost every single podcast.
100%. All right, we got 5 minutes. We're going to have to
Yeah,
wrap
five
this up
minutes.
quick,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah,
And with no disrespect to Kareem by any means.
none.
But
Yeah,
integrity, 10 out of 10. Enthusiasm, 7 out of 10. His passion was deeply internal, focused on execution, mastery, and winning. Because he rarely smiled on the court or celebrated wildly, more stoic, his enthusiasm was often misjudged as stoic indifference, though his drive to win was burning hot. So he lacked some enthusiasm. Bearing, 10 out of 10. Majestic and unshakable. Facing racism, intense media scrutiny, and hyper physical imponent. Yeah, this is in. I'm assuming this is in like in peak racism period of time.
yeah,
Maybe not the peak, I would say, but certainly fair sharing,
yeah.
dealing with all that. He carried himself with immense dignity, poise, and quiet power. Quiet power is another strong phrase. I really like some of the AI is putting out some some
Eh,
bangers. All
yeah.
right, unselfishness, 9 out of 10. Confidence, 9 out of 10. Knowledge, 10 out of 10. Loyalty, 8 out of 10. Endurance, 10 out of 10. Sense of humor, 7 out of 10. And I think that's pretty consistent with what we're hearing. It's just maybe the personality isn't quite, most outgoing ever, but he's leading in other ways. So leading by example, 10 out of 10. His daily routine was a masterclass for young players. Commitment to stretching, martial arts, nutrition, mental preparation allowed him to dominate into his 40s. He showed every team exactly what professional mastery, longevity, and consistency look like. So, longevity, consistency, leading by example, fantastic. Accountability, 8 out of 10. Kareem held people accountable through quiet gravity of his presence. If the greatest player in the world was doing his job perfectly, nobody else had an excuse to slack off. Yeah. So again, more leading by example was his a way to hold guys
And dude,
accountable.
that quiet presence, man.
Quiet presence. While he didn't get in teammates' faces to enforce rules like Jordan would, his silent disapproval was incredibly heavy. Caring for teammates, 7 out of 10. He cared deeply for the growth and fair treatment of his peers as human beings and professionals. However, on day-to-day emotional level in the locker room, he was more detached than a traditional connector leader. So that's his downfall, I think. It's just, yeah, we get it that you don't have the personality that normally you would see in like this vocal leader, but nonetheless, even if you don't talk much, you still have to provide that. You still have to be the one in the locker room going up and giving everybody their fair treatment. By fair treatment, I mean, praising them, giving them encouraging feedback. Hey, if there's a critique, critiquing them, coaching them up, getting them fired up. Like you've got to find your ways to do that. And it seems like that's where his shortcoming was. The final tally overall, Kareem's leadership score was 8.8 out of 10. And the main takeaway here was he's an exceptional case study in stoic, anchor-based leadership. He proves that you don't need to be the loudest or the most empathetic cheerleader to guide your destiny. By combining absolute dependability, uncompromised integrity, and an elite leading by example work ethic. So he was Mr. Lead by example. He provided an unyielding foundation upon which the greatest eras in sports history was built. So we have Kareem at an 8.8 out of 10. And I want to say when we got the Jeter, we got 9.2. So, I think it's unanimous. Jeter moves on with a 9.2. And I think that's because when you compare them, you're seeing Jeter was more vocal. He held his guys accountable. He did have that quiet presence about him and that stoicism, but all the same, you know, caring for teammates, 8 out of 10. Accountability, 9 out of 10. So he's picking up more in the presence that a leader should be acting, instead of just
Yeah,
kind of, you can't
yeah.
just lead by example all the time and be the best player. You got to give more, and you got to give more to the culture and take ownership of your culture.
I would be so curious just to like ask Derek Jeter this question, like because I saw an article leading into today of how he said he wanted to play for the Yankees since he was 8 years old, right? And a part of me is like, well, there has to be some point in his brain where he's like, I'm going to be so good because of all the outside noise that the media brings in, being a Yankee, being in New York City, especially the time frame 95 to 2014. I mean, New York 9/11 got hit absolutely like
Right.
catastrophic, right? A part of me is like, maybe it's because that little kid in him was like, I'm this is my dream. Why would I ever want to screw this up? And I think that is lost in sports because of the media, the money. Like these guys that are playing in the NFL, playing, you don't really see it in baseball. I feel like often it's more so in the NFL and the NBA. Like baseball has it as well, but like I think people lose sight of what they're doing. And like I
Or
had
they're in it
that
for
like
the wrong reasons. And
yeah,
I
and I
think,
had that yeah,
yeah,
like I had that realization last week of like, I think in the military people lose sight of like what your job is. Like, dude, I
it
was in the
is.
82nd Airborne Division. Yeah, it wasn't like special operations, but it was super cool, man. Like I was jumping out of planes and I was getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
And like that to me, it was never a job. It was never a job. And like I think athletes are losing sight of that little kid that you're like, dude,
Yeah,
I,
it's
I
some deep
played
stuff. Yeah,
I
for
played
sure.
football in the NFL and I'm getting paid millions of dollars to do this. Why would I want to let my little kid self down and screw this up because I can't keep my mouth shut on TV about the personal opinion I have on
Yeah.
the quarterback or the head coach?
Shoot. It's almost, I'm thinking so many different things. You're hitting a great point, man, because it's
Like
like,
not to get like super deep.
no, no,
Like,
but I think I encourage everybody to think about, like, what would the little kid in you,
yeah, dude, like
what would you think about what you're doing right now? You
yeah,
know?
like would he be proud of you? And
And also, do you truly love what you do? Because
yeah,
I would argue if you can hit both those things, you're gonna damn sure be a better leader.
100%. Like, and not to,
If you, because
so
you're gonna be authentic. Your
yeah,
yourself is gonna be coming out, and instead of just doing
100%.
this for the wrong reasons or just for the money or for the fame, that's,
That's
you're
why
not
like
authentic, and guys are gonna smell that. They're
that's
gonna
why
know
like,
exactly.
yeah, with the debate of like LeBron and Jordan of who's the greatest of all time, it's like, I don't know enough about basketball to like bounce back between the two and really debate it, but I can tell you this much: LeBron's been in the league for 21 years. The dude loves it because if
Yeah,
he did, he wouldn't be here anymore. You know,
100%.
you know
Yeah,
what I mean? And he's playing like he's 20, so like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
so like, and
I
you
mean,
gotta, yeah, man,
that's another
like,
one. Longevity, and good segue. I know we need to run, but LeBron James next week versus Jerry Rice. That's gonna be
yeah,
a
this
good
is
little
gonna
matchup.
be
That's gonna
excited
be
for
a
that.
good matchup. And so Jeter moves on. Jeter will be taking on Mia Hamm, and we'll cover that here, probably in the next week or so. But yeah, stay tuned for LeBron and Jerry Rice next week. We'll cover that one. But yeah, man, this is fun. I just absolutely
Yeah,
and
this,
am really enjoying this deep dives, and it's helped me learn a lot about these players that, aside from like some of these guys, like I know their name, never seen them before, but also kind of looking at some of these guys you used to look up to, and you're like, all right, let's look at their leadership, and obviously we're relying on AI on this one, but nonetheless, it's like this is just opening up some new channels, some new ways of thinking about some of these leaders. So, and how we can take these leadership skills and apply them in our own life. So,
yeah.
awesome, man. Well, until next time, we'll see y'all later.